Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The quiet stillness of the apartment wrapped around Caden as he fought against the thumping rhythm of his heart. His gaze fixed on the slightly ajar door of his sister's room, he took a steadying breath, amused by his own irrational dread. At 22, he'd confronted more formidable challenges than laundry, but fate had thrown this unusual obstacle in his path. A quick glance at the source of the subdued background noise, a faithful washing machine, reminded him of the reason for his current situation. His sister, Morgan, was thousands of miles away, relishing her overseas studies, oblivious to the sartorial crisis she had left in her wake. The predicament had been further compounded by Caden's own half-drowned wardrobe, courtesy of a rebellious washing machine.
Unbelievable,
he whispered, swinging the door wide open. Public transport would take at least 30 minutes, leaving no time for his clothes to dry. Caden rifled through Morgan's dresser, looking for anything remotely unisex. His hand closed around a pair of light blue skinny jeans. They looked small, but Morgan was tall for a woman, nearly his height. Maybe they'd fit. With another glance at his phone, 35 minutes now, he peeled off his pajama bottoms and attempted to squeeze into the jeans. The material hugged his legs in unfamiliar ways, but to his surprise, they slid up relatively easily. He buttoned them and turned toward the mirror. The reflection startled him. The light blue denim hugged his slim hips and accentuated his long legs in a way his baggy jeans never did. They looked good, different, but not ridiculous.
Whatever,
he mumbled, grabbing a plain black hoodie from his clean clothes pile. The hoodie was long enough to partially cover his backside, making the jeans less obvious. He'd just keep the hoodie on all day. 28 minutes before class started. Caden grabbed his backpack, stuffed his feet into sneakers, and hurried out. The bus was mercifully on time, though crowded with morning commuters. Caden kept his head down, certain everyone was staring at his borrowed jeans. Nobody seemed to notice, though, just another student rushing to morning class. Campus was bustling with activity when he arrived. Walking briskly toward the humanities building, he kept his arms crossed over his chest, still self-conscious despite the fact that nobody had given him a second look on the bus. "Hey, Caden!" He turned to see Ellie, a girl from his literature class, jogging to catch up with him. She fell into step beside him, her curly red hair bouncing with each step. "Morning," he mumbled, suddenly hyper-aware of the jeans. "Are those new?" She pointed toward his legs. "The color is amazing on you. Very fashion-forward." Caden felt his face warm. Yeah, thanks. Seriously, they fit you perfectly. Where did you get them?" "Just a store downtown," he lied, picking up his pace slightly. "Well, they look great. I wish more guys would wear clothes that actually fit instead of those saggy jeans everyone seems to love." They reached the classroom door, and Caden felt a peculiar mix of embarrassment and pleasure. It was the first genuine compliment he'd received about his appearance in, well, he couldn't remember how long. Throughout the lecture, he found himself distracted, occasionally glancing down at the blue denim encasing his legs. By the end of class, his initial discomfort had faded. When he stood to leave, Ellie wasn't the only one who noticed. "Love the jeans, Caden," remarked Paula, another classmate he barely knew. "Very European." The comments followed him through the day. A girl in his afternoon class asked where he shopped. A guy from his study group nodded approvingly and said,
"Bold choice, man. Looks good."
By the time Caden returned to his apartment that evening, something had shifted. He examined himself in the bathroom mirror, turning to see how the jeans fit from all angles. The borrowed pants revealed a silhouette he'd never noticed before. Slender, with subtle curves. Owen knocked on the bathroom door.
Dude, you okay in there? Been a while. Yeah.
Caden called back, quickly hanging the jeans up to return to Morgan's room. Just a minute. Later that night, alone in his room, Caden opened his laptop and hesitated before typing, "Men's skinny jeans." Then, after a moment's consideration, he backspaced and typed, "Women's jeans styles." 3 days later, a small package arrived. Caden had ordered it to be delivered during Owen's afternoon lab, ensuring he'd be alone when it came. He tore into the plain brown packaging with trembling fingers, pulling out a pair of dark blue women's jeans from an online retailer with discreet packaging. He slipped into them in the privacy of his bedroom. These fit even better than Morgan's, specifically selected for his measurements. The mirror reflected a version of himself that felt strangely right. The slim cut emphasized parts of his physique that men's clothes always hid. Over the next few weeks, small packages continued to arrive. A pale pink blouse with a subtle pattern, a floral scarf in autumn tones, a second pair of jeans, these with decorative stitching on the back pockets. Each item carefully selected to be subtle enough to pass casual inspection, yet undeniably from the women's section. Caden developed a system. At home, men's clothes. On campus, increasingly, items from his growing secret wardrobe. The compliments continued, especially from female classmates who appreciated what they saw as fashion courage. "You know," said Ellie one day over coffee after class, "you have a really good eye for style. Most guys just throw on whatever's clean." Caden smiled, running a finger along the edge of his scarf, rust and gold tones that brought warmth to his face. "Thanks. I guess I just started paying more attention." "Well, it works. You look happier too." Did he? Caden pondered this on the bus ride home. There was a lightness in his chest these days, a sense of alignment he couldn't quite name. Each new item of clothing felt less like costume and more like revelation. That evening, Caden stood before the mirror in his room. The door locked. He wore the pink blouse and dark jeans, with the scarf arranged carefully around his neck. His brown hair, always on the longer side, framed his face softly. For the first time, he allowed himself to really look.
"This is me,"
he whispered to his reflection. The words hung in the air, fragile but undeniable. The realization didn't crash over him like a wave, but settled gently, like snow, a truth that had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. He wasn't just a man who enjoyed women's fashion. The clothes weren't the revelation. They were the gateway to one. Caden began researching online, reading stories from transgender individuals describing feelings that mirrored his own. The disconnect, the subtle wrongness he'd felt his entire life, but had never been able to name. It had words, a community, a path forward. The woman in the mirror needed a name. Grace. The word came to him while reading late one night, a quality he'd always admired, something he aspired to embody. Grace. Coming out to Owen happened by accident. His roommate returned early from a weekend trip, walking in while Grace was trying on a new outfit, a cream-colored sweater dress with leggings. "Whoa!" Owen froze in the doorway. "Caden, what's happening here?" Grace felt her stomach plummet, but forced herself to stand tall. "Owen, I was going to tell you, but I'm still figuring things out myself." Owen set his bag down slowly. Is this a costume thing, or... No. Grace's voice was steady despite her racing heart. This is me. My name is Grace. To his credit, Owen nodded, processing. Okay, Grace, do you want to talk about it, or do you need space, or... We can talk. Grace gestured toward the living room. If you're okay with that. They talked for hours. Owen asked questions, some awkward but all sincere. By evening, he'd switched to her new name with only occasional slip-ups, each followed by a quick apology.
So what's next?
He asked, finally. Grace looked down at her hands. I'm not sure. Taking it day by day. I'd like to start presenting as myself more consistently. On campus, you mean? Eventually, yes. Owen nodded. Well, for what it's worth, that sweater really suits you. Grace laughed, tension breaking. Thanks. The following week, Grace began the gradual process of coming out to select friends. Ellie was first, over coffee before class. I've been feeling like something was different about you, Ellie said, after Grace explained. It makes sense now. You're glowing lately. Glowing? Grace smiled, touching her hair, which she'd begun growing out more deliberately now. Absolutely. Like you've shed something heavy. Ellie reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Grace is perfect for you. With each person who accepted her, Grace's confidence grew. She began wearing more overtly feminine clothes, nothing flashy, but authentic. The pink blouse became a regular part of her wardrobe, paired with cardigans and scarves as autumn deepened on campus. Not everyone was immediately supportive. Her study group had mixed reactions. 2 members embraced the change. 1 avoided eye contact, and another stopped showing up altogether. Grace felt each rejection like a bruise, but kept moving forward. Morgan was her biggest concern. How would her sister feel about the borrowed jeans that had started everything? Grace composed and deleted a dozen messages before finally video calling her one evening.
You look different,
Morgan said immediately, peering through the screen from her apartment in Barcelona. Did you change your hair? Among other things. Grace took a deep breath. Morgan, I need to tell you something important. By the end of the call, Morgan was smiling through tears. I always wanted a sister, she said, though I'm sorry you had to steal my clothes to figure it out. I'll replace the jeans. Grace laughed. Keep them. They look better on you anyway. Coming out to her parents would wait. That conversation needed to happen in person during winter break. For now, Grace focused on establishing herself on campus, building a support network, and researching medical options for transition. She made an appointment with the University Health Center, where a sympathetic doctor referred her to a gender-affirming healthcare specialist. The process would be gradual, therapy sessions, then potentially hormone therapy if she chose that path.
There's no rush, the doctor assured her. This is your journey.
Grace's wardrobe expanded thoughtfully. She saved carefully from her part-time job at the university library, investing in quality basics rather than trendy pieces. A chocolate brown cardigan that complemented her eyes, A-line skirts that swished pleasantly when she walked, comfortable flats for long days on campus. Her developing style caught attention. What had started as fashion-forward for Caden became recognized as inherently graceful taste for Grace. Female classmates sometimes asked for shopping advice, impressed by her knack for finding flattering, affordable pieces. You should start a fashion blog, suggested her coworker at the library. Your style is so put together but accessible. Grace demurred, but secretly created an Instagram account documenting her daily outfits. To her surprise, it quickly gained followers, first friends, then friends of friends, then strangers who appreciated her aesthetic. 3 months after first trying on Morgan's jeans, Grace walked into her morning literature class in a rose-colored dress with a fitted waist and flowing skirt, paired with the brown cardigan and small gold earrings. Her brown hair, now noticeably longer, was styled with subtle waves framing her face. Professor Hart, who had known her since freshman year, smiled warmly. "Grace, that color is lovely with your complexion." "Thank you," Grace replied, taking her usual seat beside Ellie. The semester continued. Grace blossomed, her academic work improving as the energy once spent on hiding herself redirected into her studies. Her literature essays grew more insightful, her class participation more confident. Winter brought new wardrobe challenges. Grace learned the art of layering, tights under skirts, scarves draped just so, fitted coats that defined her silhouette. Her Instagram following grew, with followers appreciating her practical approach to feminine style. "The secret," she wrote in one popular post, "is knowing your body and dressing for comfort first, style second. When you're comfortable, confidence follows." The trip home for winter break loomed with both anticipation and dread. Grace had video called her parents several times without revealing her transition, wearing neutral tops and minimal makeup. They had noticed her longer hair, but hadn't commented beyond her father's teasing about looking like a rock star. Owen drove her to the airport, her suitcase packed with carefully selected outfits, feminine but understated. "Call me if you need to talk," he said, hugging her goodbye. "Day or night?" The flight home gave Grace hours to rehearse what she would say. She'd written and rewritten a speech, trying to find words that would help her parents understand. By the time the plane landed, she'd abandoned the script entirely. This wasn't about perfect words. It was about truth. Her mother waited at arrivals, scanning the crowd. Grace watched the moment of confusion cross her face, followed by recognition. "Caden?" Her mother stepped forward, eyes widening. "Your hair! And you're so different!" Grace stepped into her embrace. "Hi, Mom. We have a lot to talk about." The drive home was quiet, her mother stealing glances at Grace's outfit. A simple sweater dress with leggings and boots, elegant but comfortable for travel. "You look nice," her mother finally said, hands tight on the steering wheel. "Different, but nice." "Thanks." Grace watched familiar landmarks pass outside the window. "Dad home?" "Yes. He's making dinner." A pause. "He'll be surprised." "I know." Her father's reaction was more subdued than expected. He stood in the kitchen doorway, wooden spoon in hand, staring at Grace as if trying to solve a puzzle. "Dad?" Grace began. "You're wearing makeup," he interrupted, his voice oddly gentle. "And a dress." Grace nodded. "Are you happy?" he asked, simply. The question caught her off guard. Of all the things she'd prepared for, this straightforward inquiry wasn't among them. "Yes," she answered, her voice steady. "Happier than I've ever been." Her father nodded slowly. "Dinner's almost ready. Your mother can show you to your room while I finish up." That evening over pasta, Grace explained everything, from the borrowed jeans to her gradual understanding of her identity. Her parents listened, asked questions, occasionally exchanged glances Grace couldn't interpret. "So you're Grace now?" her father clarified.
Yes. And you're planning medical changes? I'm exploring options. Nothing irreversible yet. Her mother reached across the table, squeezing her hand. This is a lot to take in, but we love you. That doesn't change. The rest of winter break unfolded in a series of conversations, some tearful, some hopeful. Her parents were trying, stumbling over pronouns but correcting themselves, asking questions that revealed their effort to understand. By New Year's Eve, her mother was helping her select outfits from her limited packed wardrobe, and her father had awkwardly complimented her earrings. Returning to campus for spring semester, Grace felt lighter. The foundation was laid for a transformed relationship with her parents, one built on authenticity rather than the performance she'd maintained for years. The new semester brought changes. Grace officially filed paperwork to use her chosen name in university records. She joined a support group for transgender students, finding community with others at various stages of their journeys. Her Instagram following continued to grow, with followers appreciating both her style advice and occasional reflections on gender and identity. One Tuesday afternoon, hurrying across campus to her advanced literature seminar, Grace nearly collided with a tall figure rounding the corner of the humanities building. "Sorry," she exclaimed, stepping back. "Wasn't watching where—" "Grace?" She looked up to see Professor Winters from the art history department, a course she'd taken last year, pre-transition. The professor studied her face, recognition dawning. "Yes, it's me." Grace smiled. "Different from Art History 201, I know." Professor Winters smiled warmly. "Wonderfully different. You look radiant. Are you still pursuing your English major?" "Yes, with a minor in digital media now. I've become interested in fashion communication and writing." "That suits you perfectly. Actually, we're organizing a university arts magazine and need someone with fashion knowledge. Would you be interested in contributing?" The opportunity led to Grace's first published writing, a thoughtful piece on sustainable fashion practices for college students. The magazine editor appreciated her clear voice and practical approach, asking her to become a regular contributor. By mid-semester, Grace had developed a small but dedicated following on campus. Students recognized her from her articles and Instagram, sometimes approaching with questions about style or gender expression. She answered with honesty tempered by boundaries, happy to share her experience without becoming tokenized. Morgan returned from study abroad in March, immediately insisting on a shopping trip. "Those jeans were just the beginning," she declared, linking arms with Grace as they entered the mall. "Now we're going to build you a proper wardrobe." They spent the day trying on clothes, Morgan's expertise in fashion combining with Grace's developing sense of her own style. They settled on versatile pieces in colors that complemented Grace's warm complexion: emerald green tops, a chocolate brown skirt, a dress in deep burgundy. "The secret," Morgan explained as Grace modeled a particularly flattering wrap dress, "is finding your signature colors and silhouettes. Once you know what works, shopping gets easier." Grace took the advice to heart, refining her style into something distinctly her own, elegant but practical, feminine without being fussy. Her Instagram documented the evolution, followers appreciating the authentic journey. Not everything was smooth. There were still days of dysphoria, moments when passing strangers used incorrect pronouns, family gatherings where distant relatives struggled with her identity. Grace faced each challenge with growing resilience, surrounding herself with supportive friends and engaging in self-care practices. Owen remained her steadfast ally, defending her when necessary and treating her identity as unremarkable in daily life. The greatest gift of normality. Ellie became her closest female friend,
offering guidance on everything from makeup techniques to navigating women's restrooms. As spring bloomed across campus, Grace was invited to speak on a student panel about diverse experiences at the university. Standing at the podium in a floral dress, her brown hair now falling past her shoulders, she shared her journey from borrowed jeans to authentic self. Transformation isn't always dramatic, she told the audience. Sometimes it's quiet realization. For me, it began with noticing how clothes made me feel, not just how they looked, but how I existed in them. That awareness opened a door I'd been afraid to approach. The audience included several professors, including Professor Hart from her literature class, who nodded encouragingly as she spoke. My journey isn't everyone's, Grace continued. Each path to authenticity is unique. What matters is finding ways to honor who you are, whatever form that takes. After the panel, a freshman approached her, eyes downcast. I've been following your Instagram, they admitted. It helped me understand some things about myself. Grace recognized the look, the tentative steps towards self-discovery she'd taken not long ago. The journey gets easier, she said gently. Not always simpler, but easier to bear. The school year drew toward close. Grace had arranged summer housing near campus, planning to work at the university library while taking a summer course. Her parents had invited her home for a 2-week visit in July, progress from the tense winter break conversations. Final exams approached, bringing the usual stress. Grace found herself in the library late one evening, surrounded by literature notes, when she received a message from a name she didn't recognize on Instagram. Your page helped me come out to my parents, it read. Thank you for showing what's possible. Messages like this had become more frequent as her following grew. Each one reminded Grace that visibility mattered, that her ordinary journey through campus life represented possibility for others. The night before her literature final, Grace met Ellie for a study session at their favorite coffee shop. Dressed in her favorite emerald green blouse and dark jeans, hair pulled into a simple ponytail, she looked up from her notes to find Ellie studying her. What? Grace asked, touching her face self-consciously. Do I have something on me? Ellie shook her head. Just thinking about the first day you wore those blue jeans to class. Remember how nervous you were? Grace smiled. How could I forget? I was certain everyone was staring. And now, look at you. Ellie gestured toward her. You've become such an inspiration on campus. I'm just living my life, Grace demurred. Exactly. That's what makes it powerful. Ellie closed her textbook. Most people never find the courage to be authentic. You did. The words stayed with Grace through finals week, through packing up her dorm room, through the transition to summer. They echoed as she hung clothes in her summer apartment, a wardrobe now fully her own, every piece selected with intention. Standing before the mirror in her new space, Grace studied her reflection. The brown hair that framed her face, the emerald blouse that brought out flecks of gold in her eyes, the posture that had once been carefully practiced but now came naturally. This was Grace. Not perfect, still evolving, but authentically herself. The journey that had begun with borrowed jeans continued, each day bringing new challenges and discoveries. But the foundation was laid. The truth was claimed. Grace turned from the mirror and opened her laptop. Her fashion blog needed an update, not just outfit photos, but reflections on the connection between external presentation and internal truth. Her followers appreciated these deeper posts, finding in them permission to explore their own identities. "Style isn't superficial," she typed. "It's language without words. Through it, we tell the world who we are, or who we're becoming." The cursor blinked, waiting for more. Outside her window, summer sunlight painted the campus in gold. Grace looked down at her hands, the same hands that had trembled while buttoning borrowed jeans months ago, now steady as they crafted words of encouragement for others. She continued typing, sharing her truth with growing confidence. One step, one outfit, one day at a time. The journey continued.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!